Today, we are going to talk about your worst nightmare. Nerd Nation. All right, today we're going to talk about how to write a novel, revision and editing. You finished the draft, now the real work begins. The three-path system that turns a draft into a manuscript. This is part 6, or this is the 6th episode of How to Write a Novel. All right, the worst feeling in writing. You type the end and feel nothing, or worse, dread. The first chapter already looks wrong. The voice feels flat. The subplot makes no sense. The ending you loved 3 days ago reads like a rough idea. This is completely normal. Don't freak out. Don't panic. Every writer who has ever produced a book worth reading has sat exactly where you are now. What you need: a system, not vague encouragement, a clear sequence, specific techniques, and an honest answer. The key truth: the first draft is not the book. It's the raw material the book is made from. It's very easy to compare your first draft of your novel to one of the best books that you were trying to compete with in the same genre and realize and think to yourself, oh, this just didn't work. And that's not true. Very likely the book that you are looking at and comparing it to started just where your book is now. So we're going to talk about a system to help you edit and create change it from text on a page to an actual genuine manuscript that is ready to be pitched to publishers. All right, first thing to do is odd, but is to step away. The biological problem. Your brain still holds the intention of every sentence, what you meant to write, not what you actually wrote. This is cognitive physics, not discipline, right? So as a reader, you're very close to that text. You knew what you were trying to go for. If you don't have any separation of time between when you wrote it and when you read it, you are going to struggle to pick up that the intention that you meant isn't left on the page. All right, the minimum 2 weeks. A month is better. Stephen King recommends 6 weeks. You are reading your memory. You are reading your memory of the document, not the document itself, if you don't wait a good amount of time. What to do while you're waiting: write something else. Read widely in your genre. Do not reread the manuscript, not even one chapter. It takes a little discipline. Break away. Take a breather. Maybe go on a bit of a vacation. Do not tell anyone the plot. You need to come back to it slightly cold. As you explain the plot, you refresh all those ideas and your intentions behind those ideas. And this can be really frustrating because you want to share with the whole world right now, but right now is not the time. When revision begins. Revision begins the moment you stop seeing what you meant and start seeing what you wrote. What actually ended coming from the brain and ending on the page can be completely different. And that's what that space, that time between finishing it and rereading it comes into play. All right, here's the development pass. I am very much a structural author. I like to have very detailed outlines before I even start writing, with the characters, the plots, the emotional themes, where I want the characters to begin and end, right? Now, since I do that, there's always going to be a lot of work in every stage of editing, but there is much less work for a structural author versus an organic author, right? So you take someone like Stephen King, who's very organic. He sits down, he just starts writing. He has some incredible things, but I bet you his editor, well, I'm sure he sends them a Christmas card because they certainly deserve it. It's going to be a challenge, right? And this is where the biggest challenge is going to be. But it is the most important part of the editing process. Big picture story is first. Do this first before you touch a single sentence. In this phase, don't be worried about commas, semicolons, em dashes. Don't be worried about that structural thing because all that might get deleted. That chapter that you were working on doing light editing might just go away. Story structure. Does each act do its job? Is Act 2 about confrontation and escalation or just events happening? So here's 6 points that you want to go over or think about as you are doing the development pass. Pacing. Where does the story drag? Where does it rush? A scene that bores you on reread will bore a reader on the first read. If you as the author are getting bored in that chapter or through a series of chapters, it is going to be a slog for the reader. Character arc. Does your protagonist change? What are they at the end? And end that they weren't at the beginning. Nothing changed equals a big problem. Plot logic. Every cause has a clear effect. The ending feels earned, not like the reader just ran out of road. Scene audit. Every scene changes something. If a scene ends the same way it started, it earns its cut. Subplots. Do they resolve? Do they illuminate the main story or distract from it? Each subplot must justify its real estate. So a lot of times subplots get put into a book to add filler to the pages, right? So that they can add some time for a reader to breathe between the major plot points. But sometimes those can add, and sometimes those can be very distracting. So do they resolve and do they add to the story, right? And that can be difficult to assess. That's why your beta readers come into play and can be very, very helpful. How to run the development pass. Read fast. You want to read the story like a reader reads the story. Ideally, you want to finish in 2 or 3 days. Take notes, don't fix. Mark problems in the margins on a separate doc. Do not stop to edit. You are reading to read the story, right? And get it how a reader consumes, right? So take notes on a separate doc or in the margins sometimes. Say, I don't like this, felt flat, this wasn't that great. Don't start working on it right away. You are diagnosing, not operating. Structural changes first. Only after the full read do you return and make structural changes, cuts, additions, restructured scenes. The rule, never line edit before the story works. You will polish sentences that are about to be deleted. So important. Development editing is the most important work you will ever do. It's also the work that never shows. Readers don't praise structure, they praise being unable to stop reading, right? So this is why a lot of times authors kind of skip or kind of gloss over this pass because they're so eager for individuals to get out there and start reading it. And so in a large sense, you don't want a beta reader to get this version, right? You want to do your development pass first, even though you might be excited to send it over to them right away. This is important that you do this, because once a beta reader reads that novel, their perspective at that point going forward, if they reread it, is tainted. It's not as good because it's not a first fresh read, right? So you need to be very careful with that. The line edit, 6-paragraph questions. All right, so when you are getting in the line editing, so that was so we just did development pass, and this is the line editing. This is where you're looking at function and form. Is this the right word? Not a good word, the right word. Very angry versus furious. Cut every modifier, doing the noun's job. This is a lot. I mean, pretty much all authors do this. They put more words in when they're writing than is really necessary, right? And it takes a skill to learn, oh, there's so many words I'm using that I don't need to necessarily use. Does this sentence have rhythm? Read it aloud. Mix long and short. A short sentence lands like a door closing. What I like to do is, a lot of times I like to do 3 small punchy words followed by a long one. I think someone called this like the whip method at some point. And that can drag or pull the reader along so that they're engaged. And then you have the long sentence that lands much stronger because of the short punchy ones before it. Is there anything already said? If you've established it, don't repeat it unless it's necessary. You feel like you're going to lose that thread of a subplot if you don't mention it at another time. But a lot of times we put more than is necessary as authors. So you have to trust the reader. Redundancy kills momentum. Is the passage trying too hard? Metaphors on metaphors. And sometimes in my first passages, I've done that. I have metaphor after metaphor after metaphor, and sometimes 2 metaphors, right back to back. Overwrought emotion. If a line makes you aware of the writer, it broke the spell. Am I keeping this because I like it? Kill your darlings. Now, this is always painful. Sometimes I remember I had a short story where I absolutely loved a character description. And it was great. I put it in there. It didn't have anything to do with the story, and I had to cut that one out. And that was hard to do, but that was absolutely necessary and the right call. Does this paragraph end well? The last sentence is the most powerful position. So a lot of times we think like a grocery list. What's the most important stuff I need at the grocery? Milk, cheese, all this stuff. And the last item is typically the item that we don't, we threw on there last minute and not necessarily, if I don't grab it, it's not going to be the end of the world. It's just the opposite with a paragraph. Your paragraph, your first sentence is the second most important thing. Then you have the middle, and then the last sentence is the most important thing. So really pay attention to what your last sentence is doing, and if it is powerful, right? Because that is the last sentence that's going to leap to the next. All right, the 3 system pass, right? So do these in strict order. Do not mix them. Each pass has one job. Development, edit, the big picture. So what are you doing in this one? The big picture: story structure, pacing, character arc, plot, logic, scene, level, function. Does the story work? Do I believe these characters? Does every scene earn its place? Do this first. Never, ever line edit before the story works. You'll find yourself doing it. Everyone does. But you want to stop putting those commas in and things like that, because it almost feels wrong to leave a sentence just as bad as when you first spotted it. But that's for the line editing, right? And the proofread. So the second pass, what you're trying to do, the sentence level: clarity, rhythm, word choice, redundancy, awkward phrasing, right? This is where you're going to eliminate those metaphors that at the time when you were writing, it just sounded so great in your head. And that you do a reread and you're like, there's just, what was I thinking at that point? And that one's got to change, get removed, or adjusted. And when you're doing this pass, ask yourself, does every sentence earn its place? Is this the right word? Does this paragraph breathe? Do this second. Once structure is locked, refine the language. Right now you're moving to the language and the sentence structure, paragraph structure. And the final pass is essentially just more perfunctory, right? This is just proofreading. Everyone's going to have a bunch of mistakes in there. You're going to have comma splices. Sometimes that's intentional. Sometimes it's completely fine, necessary. Sometimes it's just distracting for the reader. So this is, in some part, for some personalities, this is the easiest part of it. And there's a lot of great editors that you can hire or that work out there that can help develop your manuscript even before you necessarily send it to a traditional publisher. You can send, there's a lot of talent out there that you can involve in any of these steps. But if for proofreading, they will be the least expensive because it's the least amount of time. But there's a lot of editors you can work with for development editing, line editing, and proofreading. All right, they ask, is this clean enough for a professional to read without distraction? Do this last only when all content is finalized. So important, because if the tendency, if you're new at this, is to start doing this right away, because it's just aggravating to read a sentence that has some mistakes. This is the third pass. The cardinal rule: if you catch yourself fixing comma during the development pass, close the laptop, because you are in editing mode and you need a break. That comma might be a sentence that's about to be deleted. Self-editing techniques that work: this is changing the format, changing the font, changing the way you look at it, because your natural mind will, if there's an adjustment and it's new, it'll be easier to spot mistakes. It's just how the mind works. Read it aloud, all of it. I do this. I think that is 100% necessary for every book that I write. Your ear catches what your eye normalizes. You will hear the clunky sentence that looks fine on page. Record yourself. It forces you to slow down. The reverse read. Now, a lot of people swear by this. Doesn't work for me. For line editing, read backwards one paragraph at a time from the end. Removes narrative context, so you can't coast on knowing what happens. Every flat paragraph becomes obvious. Like I said, I can't do it. So, I mean, if you are out there and you do this, you have a talent I do not possess. Self-editing techniques. The scene audit: create a doc, one line per scene. What happens, whose POV, what changes. Any line reading nothing changes is a cut candidate, right? So you want to, every scene, like I said, needs to progress the story. If you do a scene audit and you've got nothing, like there's nothing that progresses. Uh, Something needs to change with that scene. Something needs to progress that scene, or it needs to be cut completely out. Any two consecutive scenes doing the same emotional work, one is redundant. So either pare it down, cut it out completely, or combine the two. The adverb and filter word hunt. Search for very, really, just, that, suddenly, began to, felt, wondered, noticed, realized. All these things are words that I've used, that authors use all the time, but they should be used very judiciously. Almost always, these words are almost always doing the work that prose should be doing directly. She suddenly felt afraid. People use that all the time in writing, versus her hands went cold. There's a lot more going on in that sentence that is much shorter, right? So this is an important way to hunt and filter word hunt. Get a beta reader first. Do the 3-pass method before you get beta readers. Otherwise, you will ruin that beta reader's perspective. Especially if you still need to do substantial changes and edits when you're still moving big plot points around. Now, that being said, you might have to do another 3-pass after your beta readers all read it and had the same thing. The second act was a dud. You need to do more substantive and revision to the plot itself. But beta readers, hang on to every beta reader that comes across your work, because they are super valuable to the entire process. The most dangerous beta reader is the one who loved everything. Makes you feel good. And it's good that your mom reads it and she loves everything, but she's not necessarily going to move the needle as far as making the book better. How to know when it's done. Abandoning too early, sending it after one pass, confusing, tired of looking at it versus done, skipping the developmental pass because structure feels fine. Don't skip the developmental pass. That is a temptation. Because no one wants to work on plot and structure after they just finished it and they had planned it extensively and it felt fine when they planned it. Revising forever. This is the other end of things, where you are making the same changes of the same chapters and you are just substituting words that you might have already eliminated. This is a trap that a lot of authors struggle in. It is hard to accept things sometimes and say it's working, it's doing its job, right? 4 signs it is ready. All 3 passes completed in sequence, development, line, proof, editing. A beta reader who reads your genre has told you where it broke and you've addressed their notes. So after you do the 3-pass, give it to a beta reader, and then you address what a beta reader is talking about. Especially if you have multiple beta readers saying the same thing. You know something's not right, something's not working. Go through the 3-pass method again. Number 3, every remaining problem is stylistic preference, not a craft issue. Number 4, you can articulate what the book is about, not the plot, the theme in 2 sentences. The writer who finishes is always more advanced than the writer who waits to feel ready. So finish the book, do the 3-pass, get beta readers, enhance the book with the beta readers, and then you are on your way to be able to send the polished manuscript to a traditional publisher or get it ready for publication, right? Doesn't mean they're going to do their own substantial pass and things like that, but it is ready for that next step. Okay, do this today if you have a finished draft. Do a scene audit. If you don't have a draft yet, bookmark this episode and then come back to it. What this series gave you here is I gave you in this webisodes, creating great characters, plot and structure, world building, dialogue, point of view, and voice, and revision. You now have a system. The rest is just showing up and getting the work done. Anyway, I really enjoyed putting this together. If you like this, please like, comment below. Love to hear from you. Subscribe so you can get more content like this. And you can always check out sterlingnixon.com. Anyway, loved hanging out with you. Thanks so much for coming along for the ride. And you all have a good one. Take care.